Good morning, children. Let us start with part 5 of Kings and Chronicles. The Mughal court. The physical arrangement of the court focused on the sovereign, mirrored his status as the heart of society. Its centerpiece was therefore the throne, the takht, which gave physical form to the function of the sovereign or the ruler as excess mundi, the whole and soul, all in all. The canopy, a symbol of kingship in India for a millennium, was believed to separate the radiance of the sun from that of the sovereign. Chronicles lay down with great precision the rules defining status amongst the Mughal elites. In court, the status was determined by spatial proximity to the king. The place accorded to a courtier by the ruler was a sign of his importance in the eyes of the emperor. The more nearness to the king, the more favorite he was of the king. Once the emperor sat on the throne, no one was permitted to move from his position or to leave without permission. Social control in court society was exercised through carefully defining in full detail the forms of address, courtesies, and speech which were acceptable in court. The slightest infringement or going away from the etiquette was noticed and punished on the spot. The forms of salutation to the ruler indicated the person's status in the hierarchy. Deeper prostration represented higher the status. The highest form of submission was sijda or complete prostration. Under Shah Jahan, these rituals were replaced with chahar taslim and zameen bos, that is kissing the ground. The protocols governing diplomatic envoys at the Mughal court were equally explicit. An ambassador presented to the Mughal emperor was expected to offer an acceptable form of greeting. That is, it could be either by bowing deeply or kissing the ground, or else to follow the Persian custom of clasping one's hands in front of the chest. It happened once that the English ambassador of James I, Thomas Roy, he simply bowed before Emperor Jahangir and further shocked everyone by demanding a chair to sit. Let us now discuss a day with the Mughal emperor. Morning. Jharokha Darshan. The emperor began his day at sunrise with personal religious devotions or prayers, and then appeared on a small balcony, the Jharokha, facing the east. Below, a crowd of people, in which soldiers were there, merchants, craftspersons, peasants, women with sick children, waited for a view, that is, darshan of the emperor. Jharokha Darshan was introduced by Akbar with the objective of broadening the acceptance of the imperial authority as part of popular faith. Diwan-e-Aam and Diwan-e-Khas. After spending an hour at the Jharokha, the emperor walked to the public hall of audience that was called as Diwan-e-Aam. Aam, that means audience, ordinary people, to conduct the primary business of his government. State officials presented reports here and made requests here. 2 hours later, the emperor was in the Diwan-e-Khas to hold private audiences and discuss confidential matters. Khas logo se baatcheet. On confidential matters. High ministers of state placed their petitions before him, and tax officials presented their accounts in front of him. Occasionally, the emperor viewed the works of highly reputed artists or building plans of architects that were called as mimar. That this happened occasionally, not on regular basis, but sometimes. Special occasions. On special occasions such as the anniversary of accession to the throne, Eid, Shab-e-Barat and Holi, the court was full of life. Perfumed candles set in rich holders and palace walls festooned with colorful hangings made a tremendous impression on the visitors. The Mughal kings celebrated 3 major festivals in a year: the solar and lunar birthdays of the monarch and Nowruz, the Iranian New Year on the vernal equinox. On his birthdays, the monarch was weighed against various commodities which were then distributed in charity. Titles and gifts. Grand titles were adopted by the Mughal emperors at the time of coronation or after a victory over an enemy. High-sounding and rhythmic, they created an atmosphere of awe in the audience when announced by ushers, that is Naqib. Mughal coins carried the full title of the reigning emperor with regal protocol. The granting of titles to men of merit was an important aspect of Mughal polity. A man's ascent in the court hierarchy could be traced through the titles he held. The title Asaf Khan for one of the highest ministers originated with Asaf, the legendary minister of the Prophet King Solomon. The title Mirza Raja was accorded by Aurangzeb to his 2 highest ranking nobles, Jai Singh and Jaswant Singh. Titles could be earned or paid for. Mir Khan offered rupees 1 lakh to Aurangzeb for the letter Alif, that is A, to be added to his name to make it Amir Khan. Other awards included the robe of honor, that is Khilat, a garment once worn by the emperor and imbued with his benediction. One gift, the Sarapa, head to foot, consisted of a tunic, a turban and a sash, that is Patka. Jeweled ornaments were often given as gifts by the emperor. The lotus blossom set with jewels, Padma Murasa, was given only in exceptional circumstances. A courtier never approached the emperor empty-handed. He offered either a small sum of money, that is Nazr, or a large amount, that is Peshkash. In diplomatic relations, gifts were regarded as a sign of honor and respect. Ambassadors performed the important function of negotiating treaties and relationships between competing political powers. In such a context, gifts had an important symbolic role. Children, some important terms from this part. Firstly, Chahar Taslim is a mode of salutation which begins with placing the back of the right hand on the ground and raising it gently till the person stands erect when he puts the palm of his hand upon the crown of his head. It is done 4 times, Chahar times. It is called as Chahar. Taslim literally means submission. Then Cornish, the second word. Cornish was a form of ceremonial salutation in which the courtier placed the palm of his right hand against his forehead and bent his head. It suggested that the subject placed his head, the seat of the senses and the mind, into the hand of humility, presenting it to the royal assembly. Third, Shab-e-Barat. Shab-e-Barat is the full moon night on the 14th Shaban, the 8th month of the Hijri calendar, and is celebrated with prayers and fireworks in the subcontinent. It is the night when the destinies of the Muslims for the coming year are said to be determined determined and sins forgiven. Axis mundi. It is a Latin phrase for a pillar or pole that is visualized as the support of the earth. That's all, children, for this part. Meet you again with the next part. Thank you.